So in continuation of the previous physiology class, we will be discussing about the previous year question papers. There are just a few questions. We will have a rapid glance at these questions and their answers. First question is, P-type active transporters including the following except. So this is a type of active transport. They have asked what are different types of active transporters. The choice they have given is H plus ATPase, sodium potassium pump, calcium pump, and H plus K plus pump. So we have four types of ATP transporters, ATPases. So they are P-type transporters, V-type transporters, F-type transporters, and ATP binding cassettes, ABC transporters. These are the four major types of ATPs. So first we have P-type. So P-type ATPase pump is, P stands for phosphorylation. So whenever the pump gets activated, the carrier gets phosphorylated. Here we have sodium potassium ATPase, calcium ATPase, and Na plus H plus pump. So all these pumps are ubiquitous pump. So they are most commonly seen in all cells. So next we have the V-type pump. We have the vacuolar protein pumps, which helps in acidifying the organelles. The third one is F-type pump or pure ATP synthesis, which helps in generating the ATPs in mitochondria. Last, we have the ATP binding cassettes, ABC transporters, which helps in the movement of multiple molecules during the hydrolysis of ATP. So for first question, the P-type active transporters include all except H plus ATPase because sodium potassium pump, calcium pump otherwise called as SERCA pump, sarcoplasmic or endoplasmic reticulum calcium ATPase, H plus K plus pump, all these pumps are examples for F-type, P-type active transporters. Next, activation of chemosensitive vagal fibers in the cardiopulmonary region results in profound bradycardia, hypotension, and apnea. This response is called as, so we have Mars reflex, Besold-Jarris reflex, Mary's reflex, and plantar reflex. So you all know the term plantar reflex is, we can easily exclude this choice. Next we have Mars reflex. What is Mars reflex? So whenever an experimental animal is stimulated at a particular point, especially in the back, it undergoes multiple reflexes. Okay, there are withdrawal reflex, defecation reflex, mass movement reflex, all these reflexes. So this group of reflex occurring due to especially nociceptive stimulus is called as Mars reflex. Next we have Mary's reflex. This is we already discussed during regulation of blood pressure. Last, the choice left is Besold-Jarris reflex. What is Besold-Jarris reflex? So Besold-Jarris reflex is otherwise called as coronary chemoreflex. So whenever there is presence of an irritant chemical in the cardiopulmonary areas, chemicals like capsaicin, vanillin, veratridine, histamine, or activation of irritant receptors all over the cardiopulmonary areas, this will result in bradycardia, hypotension, and vasodilatation. This is the typical triad for Besold-Jarris reflex. If it occurs in the cardiac area, it is called as coronary chemoreflex. If the same occurs in the pulmonary activation of pulmonary receptors, it is called as pulmonary chemoreflex. It is together called as cardiopulmonary chemoreflex, simply Besold-Jarris reflex. So the triad consists of bradycardia, hypotension, and vasodilatation. So this is due to the activation of chemosensitive vagal C fibers, that is irritant vagal C fibers by chemicals. So this is a diagram showing here. So whenever there is an MI or an infarct or reperfusion injury, it releases chemicals like bradykinins, prostaglandins, and reactive oxygen species. It will activate the irritant cardioinhibitory C fibers, vagal C fibers. At the same time, conditions associated with the decreased preload or whenever there is increased sympathetic activity, which causes vigorous contraction of the ventricles, this will activate the mecharoceptors. The mecharoceptors will activate the cardioinhibitory C fibers. From there, the vagus gets activated. This will go and inhibit the vasomotor center, VMC. All this will result in decreased sympathetic output, resulting in bradycardia, hypotension, and vasodilatation, which is not a correct statement about hypokalemia. The typical ECG changes occur affecting QRS is particular. That is the question says is hypokalemia is diagnosed by looking after the QRS and ECG. So this is a wrong statement. We'll discuss later. Hypokalemia with hypertension suggests Conn syndrome. Yeah, it's correct. Bartter syndrome and Littleman syndrome shows hypokalemia and hypomagnesemia. It's correct. IV potassium correction should not exceed 10 millimoles per hour. So this is approximately a correct statement. We'll see how. First, the typical ECG changes occurring in hypokalemia are, first and foremost is we have the ST depression. Next, we have flat T wave and we have prolonged QT interval. So there is nothing particular about the QRS. Okay, ST depression, prolonged QT interval, flat T wave and U wave. These are the cardinal ECG features in hypokalemia. So where you will get hypertension and hypokalemia. So whenever we use diuretic overusage, like diuretic use in hypertension, primary hyperaldosteronism, that is called as Conn syndrome, Cushing syndrome, pheochromocytoma, renal vascular disease, and malignant hypertension. In all these conditions, hypertension is associated with hypokalemia. So I'm repeating: essential hypertension due with diuretic overusage, primary hyperaldosteronism, that's called as Conn syndrome, Cushing syndrome, pheochromocytoma, renal vascular disease, and malignant hypertension. Next, hypokalemia and hypomagnesemia, usually they occur together because for reabsorption of potassium in the kidneys, you need some amount of magnesium. So if magnesium is not there, potassium reabsorption in the kidneys is affected. This will result in both hypomagnesemia and hypokalemia. So these are the common causes where you'll get both these are the conditions causing hypokalemia. So renal tubular disorders, we have Gentleman syndrome and Bartter syndrome, diuretic overusage, chemotherapeutic drugs, severe vomiting, diarrhea, malabsorption, chronic alcoholism, critical patients in ICU, diabetes mellitus, diabetes insipidus, all will result in hypokalemia. The maximum recommended rate for potassium correction is by IV route is 10 millimoles per hour. Okay, this is for normal condition. During severe life-threatening hypokalemia, in a well-established cardiac setup, you can go up to 20 millimoles per hour. But under normal condition, the maximum recommended rate is only 10 millimoles per hour. Next question. Spirometry cannot measure forced expiratory volume, vital capacity, tidal volume, residual volume. This question we already discussed while seeing respiratory system. You'll see how. So this is the graph showing the different lung volumes and capacities. So this is the tidal volume. The volume of air breathed in or breathed out per respiratory act is called as tidal volume. This is 500 ml. So the volume of air remaining in the lungs at the end of normal tidal volume, this is called as functional residual capacity, approximately 2400 volume. Of this 2400 volume, if you do a forceful expiration, you can remove 1200 ml of air out. So the remaining 1200 ml of air remains in the base of the lungs even after forceful expiration. This volume is called as residual volume. So if you want to measure any volume or capacity using a spirometer, the air has to either blown in or blown out through this spirometry. So this residual volume cannot come out. Okay, by any means you cannot remove this residual volume. So this residual volume cannot be measured by the spirometer. So if you don't know the residual volume, you cannot measure the functional residual capacity. If you don't know the functional residual capacity, you cannot measure the total lung capacity. So these are the three parameters through which cannot be measured by a normal spirometer: residual volume, functional residual capacity, and total lung capacity. These three things can be measured by using special techniques. Find out the correct match about glucose transporters in mammals. GLUT4, jejunum. GLUT5, skeletal muscle. GLUT6, brain. GLUT7, leukocytes. Again, this is a very, very important MCQ prone area. We discussed already glucose transporters. Glucose is transported in our body by two types of mechanism. In the basolateral side, in the nephron and the intestine, it is by the secondary active transport, SGLT. Sorry, in the apical side or luminal side, it is by SGLT. In the basolateral side of the epithelial cell, it is by glucose transporters, GLUT, example for facilitated diffusion. So here the answer, the only correct match among this is GLUT7. GLUT7 is seen in leukocytes. So we'll see one by one. So GLUT4 is involved in insulin-mediated glucose uptake, which occurs in skeletal muscle and adipose tissue. GLUT5, for 5 stands for fructose uptake in jejunum and sperm. GLUT6, as we already discussed, GLUT6 is a pseudogene. No protein is yet mapped. Again, this is a very important table. GLUT1, GLUT2, GLUT3 up to GLUT7. GLUT1 and GLUT3 are basal uptake of glucose. GLUT1 is involved in glucose uptake in almost all cells of our body, seen in RBC, brain, kidney, colon, retina, and placenta. So, glucose uptake across the brain is mediated by both GLUT1 and GLUT3. GLUT2, it is a beta cell glucose sensor. GLUT4, insulin-mediated glucose uptake, which occurs in skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle, and adipose tissue. Does not occur in liver. GLUT5, it is fructose transporter. It is seen in small intestine, mainly jejunum, testes, sperms, and also in kidney. GLUT6 is a pseudogene. GLUT7 transport is involved in glucose 6-phosphate transporter. It is seen in liver endoplasmic reticulum. It is also seen in leukocytes. Iron absorption in the duodenum is regulated by ferroportin, hepcidin, transferrin, erythropoietin. So the exact answer is hepcidin. So hepcidin is a major regulator of iron transport. It is seen in the duodenum. So whenever our serum iron level becomes very high, this hepcidin inhibits a protein called as ferroportin. Okay, so hepcidin limits the basolateral iron efflux from the duodenal epithelium by binding and inhibiting the function of ferroportin. So whenever serum iron level is more, hepcidin level will get increased. This will go and inhibit the transporter called as ferroportin. Iron transport does not occur across the duodenum. At puberty, the number of ovarian oocytes is, this is again another important MCQ prone area. These numbers you have to remember. So at birth, immediately the child is born, the female child will be having approximately 1 to 2 million follicles. During puberty, it gets converted to just 3 lakhs to 4 lakhs. At reproductive age, it falls very rapidly. So the maximum during at the peak reproductive age is around 1 lakh to 3 lakhs. So at the age of menopause, there will be very less amount of eggs. So at birth, 1 to 2 million. Then during puberty, 3 to 4 lakhs. At the peak reproductive age at 20 to 24, 1 lakh to 3 lakh. Following menopause, gradually all the eggs gets left out. Damage to the cerebellum leads to all the following abnormalities except hypertonia, ataxia, hypotonia, intentional tremor. Again, these type of questions will be seen in MRB. You can easily rule the two answers. If hypotonia is the answer, hypotonia will not be there. Similarly, if hypertonia is the answer, hypotonia will not be there. So the only thing what you have to do is you have to rule out between hypertonia and hypotonia. So cerebellar, whenever there is a cerebellar lesion, it will result in hypotonia. Very, very important, hypotonia on the same side. So there is a mnemonic for cerebellar disease. You can remember in Danish. D stands for dysdiadochokinesia, A for ataxia, N for nystagmus, I for intentional tremor, S for scanning speech or staccato speech or slurred speech, H for hypotonia. Intentional tremor is seen in cerebellar lesion. Pill rolling tremor is seen in Parkinson's disease, or resting tremor or pill rolling tremors is seen in Parkinson's disease. All of the following are vitamin K dependent clotting factors except factor 11, 9, 7 and prothrombin are factor 2. Answer is factor 11. Vitamin K dependent factors are 2, 7, 9, 10. You can remember by the mnemonic 2 plus 7 is 9 and not 10. So you have the 4 values here 2, 7, 9, 10. These 4 factors are vitamin K dependent factors or liver dependent factors. Annulospiral ending of muscle spindle belongs to which type of fiber? So this question is based on Erlanger and Geiser classification of nerve fibers. So choices given are A alpha, A beta, A gamma and type C fibers. So the answer is A alpha. So we have A alpha fibers. A alpha fibers are seen in muscle spindle in the annulospiral ending. A alpha fibers are also seen in Golgi tendon organ. A beta fibers are seen in muscle spindles in the flower spray ending. They help in the transmission of touch and pressure. A delta for pain and temperature, pain and cold receptors. We have dorsal root C fibers, which helps in carrying the pain, temperature, and other receptors. So this is the Erlanger and Geiser classification. As we earlier discussed, this classification is based on the nerve fiber diameter and also based on conduction velocity. As we go down from A alpha to type C, gradually the myelination content decreases, fiber diameter gets decreases, conduction velocity gets decreases, and the refractory period gets increased. So A alpha fibers are primary muscle spindle afferent. They are motor to skeletal muscle. A beta, touch and pressure. A delta, they are the motor fibers to muscle spindle. A delta, temperature and pain afferents in the skin. B fibers, sympathetic preganglionic fibers. Type C fibers, they are again cutaneous pain afferent fibers, sympathetic postganglionic fibers. Erlangen gas classification, again, it's a very important table. You may get MCQs here. Which of the following increases ionized serum calcium? Increased serum albumin, respiratory alkalosis, hyperphosphatemia, acute hypomagnesemia. We will discuss these choices one by one. Increased serum albumin. So whenever serum albumin level is more amount of albumin binds with more. We all know calcium binds with albumin. If serum albumin is more, it binds with more amount of calcium. It increases the unionized calcium component more, such that the ionized serum calcium level gets decreased. If albumin level gets increases, bound form of calcium level gets increased. This will decrease the ionized serum calcium level. Next, respiratory alkalosis. In respiratory alkalosis, it imparts more negative charge for the albumin. So, increase negative charge for albumin. You all know albumin is negatively charged, calcium is a positively charged. If the negativity of albumin gets increased, it will attract more amount of positive charges. So, the bound calcium level gets increased, the ionized serum calcium level falls. Hyperphosphatemia, whenever serum phosphorus level becomes high, it binds with calcium and forms complexes, automatically decreasing the ionized serum calcium level. So the answer is acute hypomagnesemia. In hypomagnesemia, severe magnesium deficiency inhibits parathyroid hormone release and its action, leading to low ionized serum calcium. But paradoxically, sometimes, mild hypomagnesemia can sometimes increase serum calcium level from the bone, leading to increased ionized calcium. A major renal tubular site of aldosterone action is DCT, PCT, loop of Henle, and P cells. You all know aldosterone acts on the P cells of the cortical collecting duct, and by there increasing the reabsorption of sodium. So aldosterone released from the adrenal cortex. It is a lipid-soluble hormone, enters inside the distal nephron of principal cell of mainly the collecting duct. There it binds to the melanocorticoid receptor. Once the hormone goes and binds to the receptors, it increases the activation of epithelial sodium channels through which sodium enters inside the cell. So, aldosterone acts on the distal P cell of the distal nephron, that is the collecting duct. If collecting duct is not an answer, you can go for late part of DCT. If collecting duct is there, it is the answer. So with this, we have finished the previous year questions of physiology. So all the best. Thank you.